I recently had the privilege of spending some time with Orthodox woodcarver, symbolist, and YouTuber Jonathan Pageau. We had some great conversations together, and he graciously agreed to sit down with me for an interview.
Did years burn out those words? Did a voice whisper upset?
I think that the most significant thing that Orthodoxy has brought to me, you know, as someone who lived as my whole life knowing in some way that I was going to be an artist somehow, and struggling with that in art school, and then actually throwing all my art away and kind of turning away from art after art college because it was just the contemporary art world was just too nuts. I think that it has given me a way to integrate things together. And so, you know, as an icon carver now, my work and my life, and then my life in prayer and, my church, all of those things kind of fit more and more together as I'm moving through life. And the stories, let's say, the patterns that I talk about, as I carve them, even with my hands, and as I participate in liturgy, they sink in an almost in a slow way. I feel them taking up more space, let's say, in my life and in my world. And I think that has brought a certain feeling of deeper and deeper meaning and deeper connection, and looking out the world and seeing how things are connected and seeing it as this theophany, as God manifesting himself in the world and in society in certain ways. And so it really is, for me, I could say, it's this slow theophany. It's this progressive vision of God appearing in the world and seeing in things and in connections that I hadn't seen before, slowly seeing God appearing more and more in the world. I think that has been the most amazing thing, and I'm always surprised as I move forward, as my own personal trust in God grows, let's say, and as I slowly whittle away at my own passions and do that in collaboration with my confessor and in church, all those things coming together, it is this slow theophany. And I look around and I see more light in the world today than I did, 20 years ago, let's say. And I see that growing. And so I think that, at least for myself, that's been the most amazing thing. And I look forward to seeing it continue by the grace of God. The most difficult things about becoming Orthodox, I think there's a barrier. There's a first barrier, which is that it's so countercultural, at least compared to our normal culture, kind of consumer, late capitalism, whatever you want to call it. It is so countercultural that it's difficult to pierce at the beginning. It's difficult to enter, and there also is. It depends where you live, but especially where I was, I know that there was a feeling of insularity, a feeling like it's almost inaccessible, almost as if. Sometimes in Orthodox parishes that they don't actually want you to come, not that they don't want you to come, but that they're not like the evangelical church, doing everything they can to make you come to their church and organizing things to reach out and do all that things. The Orthodox churches don't seem to do that. So there is this feeling of a barrier at entry, let's say, which is probably not bad for us. It's probably actually good for us to have to kind of make that effort and push through. But I think that's been and then after that, once you are inside the church, it's difficult too in terms of the countercultural feeling. It's almost as if you have to reboot your program, we have this basic program, and to then reboot it and to be able to live in the liturgical cycle and to live with the feasts and with the fasting and that can be extremely difficult, especially if you're living a modern life and so there are quite a few obstacles. But I think that knowing that you always kind of fall short of that, I know I fall short of it for sure, that slow movement, I talked about a slow theophany before, and I think that this kind of slow movement into this life, orthodoxy is a way of life, and this slow immersion into the life it's a lifelong journey, and you just kind of slowly emerge into it. And so I think that's let's say the positive to the negative, but it is almost becoming Orthodox at first at the beginning almost feels like it's another planet, and so you have to relearn to live and relearn to see the world differently. So that can be quite difficult. Well, I would say that in the last, I would say that in many ways my life has been filled with miracles, strange miracles or little miracles, you could say. I don't know how to say it. When I never decided that I was going to be an icon carver. I'd never decided. I didn't think anybody could decide that. It doesn't seem to make sense as a decision, with someone who has 3 kids to do that. It really happened to me, because circumstances set themselves up around me. And when 7 years ago, I came back from Africa. My wife and we had been volunteers in Africa for 7 years. And when we got back from Africa, we obviously were very poor. We had been volunteers for 7 years. We didn't have much, and I didn't have a job and all those things. And it was amazing to see, to see how God takes care of his children. It was crazy. For the first few years as I was becoming an icon carver, I would come back to my house and I would find these bags of clothes on my porch. I don't know where they came from. People who didn't know us were giving us clothes for our kids. 3 times people gave us cars. One time someone gave my wife a car. She had met the lady for just a week, and that person gave my wife her car. And so I received checks in the mail from people I don't know. Just a check with, And so I have seen these small miracles constantly in my life. And in a way, for the last 7 years, I have basically, because I'm carving these icons, I have basically lived from month to month. I start the month, and at the end of the month, my account is almost at 0, and then I start the month again, and I don't know what's going to happen. And every month, I'm fine. I've never had huge financial problems. I just keep going like that. And to me, that has just been this constant miracle. and myself, and then it's the test of your faith, because every time, in moments where you're dark and in moments where you're doubting, you're like the Israelites in the desert, and you think, I can't believe it, I'm going to be ruined and everything's going to fall apart, my kids are going to starve, blah, 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 blah. And you don't know that God has saved you over and over and over every time, and you forget every time that you thought that you had nothing. And then one time someone called us from Africa. A lady in Africa called us and said, God showed me that I have to give you so much. And it was exactly the amount that I needed to finish the month that month. And that happened over and over. And so my life has been strangely filled with miracles. And so and despite that, I still doubt. That's the most horrible thing. Despite that, I still have moments where I doubt, but I don't see how people can argue against the miraculous, especially when you live it. If you pay attention, you live these miracles in your life, and especially if you put yourself, I think if you put yourself in positions where you're in need, where you're not self-sufficient, I think it seems to be that way, that the gap is filled in ways that you can't imagine. And so yeah, I feel like I've been surrounded by miracles.
Hi again. I hope you enjoyed this episode from my interview with Jonathan Pageau. Again, please subscribe to get notified when new episodes become available. And also, if you would, please leave a comment in the comment section below letting me know what you thought of this video. Thanks, have a great weekend, and see you next week.